at 34.78 compared to 36.14% a year ago. This month, we received impact fees of $109,137.36 for 15 new home starts. Transition fees came in at $93.05 2 Bills payable are typical for December. This month, we have one debt certificate payment and 2 bond payments that total about $1.9 million in there. That's the last one for this part of the year. And then next, we'll talk about the tax levy.
Great.
Ready?
Thank you.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Benar,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes. Next, we need a motion and second to discuss and approve the estimated amounts necessary to be levied for the year 2020.
So moved.
Second.
The tax levy, there's been no new updates from last board meeting, so everything is as it was at the last meeting. The request that we were asking is about a 4.89% increase over last year's extension. We only think we're going to receive about 4.26% of that. Our bond payments are going to be, they go up a little bit to $7.8845 million. And this is with the projections of the $791 million for EAV, $14,900,000 for new construction. As long as those assumptions are kind of close, then we anticipate our tax rate to go down from $6.81 to $6.76. So in your board packet, you have resolutions to adopt the levy. You have your truth in taxation certificate, the levy summary sheets, and the certificate of tax levy forms. So once those are all signed and approved, I will seal them and then deliver them to both Kane and DeKalb counties.
All right. Any questions for Dana? Okay.
Nolan,
Yes.
Benar,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes. A motion and second are needed to discuss and approve the donation of $1,000 from the Central Education Foundation to assist families during the holiday food drive.
So moved.
Second.
Again, we have $1,000 from the Central Education Foundation. They donated it for our holiday gift basket project. We were able to serve over 260 Central 301 families with this. Our transportation department and the boosters volunteered and drove them and dropped them off at their houses. Central Athletic Boosters opened up their online payment, and they collected over $8,000 from staff in the community just wanting to donate money. So all of that money raised, along with this $1,000, went to purchase turkeys and gift cards and other things that we might have been short on. And then there was actually about $1,700 left over, so we're going to donate that to the Prairie Knolls Food Pantry to continue to service our community.
Awesome.
So it's a huge event.
Yeah, that's
It was
fantastic.
really, really, really well received.
All right.
Nolan,
Yes.
Benar,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes. All right, motion and second are needed to discuss and approve the intergovernmental agreement between 301 and the other districts that comprise the Northern King County Regional Locational System, which include D300, U46, and St. Charles 303.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Monaghan?
This is just part of us taking over as the administrative and fiscal agent. It came as information previously, and so we're just looking for action so that we can continue the work for the EFE. Our regional elements it would be basically us covering all costs for administrative if the grant didn't come through. So far, it's come through on an annual basis, as well as administering anything that we need to do for all 4 districts.
Just out of curiosity, are there more agreements? Because I know we did one like 2 months ago, right?
These
Or is
are
that
those
just
are veterinary
information?
clinic. We have vet agreements that will be coming forward every month as we get more vet partners. That's part of the externship and the veterinary program. This is the actual intergovernmental agreement between the neighboring districts and ourselves to work together in partnership.
Right, that's Stroh's.
It was information,
working
it wasn't action.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah,
So this
just
is the action
information.
to bring it forward so that we have it finalized.
Gotcha.
There's been no changes to the agreement since November.
Bernard,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes. All right, next, we need a motion and second to discuss and approve 3 veterinarian affiliation agreements.
So moved.
Second. So as part of the externship program, a portion of the veterinary science program, we continue to reach out for business partners. These 3 are new business partners for us this year. It has been a little bit of a struggle for us to maintain those with COVID-19. We did have to limit the number of students that were able to go off for externship this second semester to complete the hours that they need. To our seniors only who are taking the test in May, we do have enough partnerships for that, but we do not have it for some of the students who maybe were not finishing up as seniors. We have like 7 students that are seniors currently who will not be able to complete their externship, but they did not have enough hours anyway to get their testing completed in May. But we're excited to have these guys as business partners, so we look forward to you approving these agreements.
All right.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes. After 8 super quick minutes, we're on to information items. So we have the in-person and remote learning status report.
So we wanted to just give you a primary update. One of the things that we did want to, you have at your seats, the Encore newsletter, to take a look at some of the activities that are going on. I do think our teachers are doing a really great job of kind of figuring in this whole synchronous, asynchronous activities and putting it all together. You're seeing kind of a newsletter that showcases the different activities that the different Encore groups out of Central Middle School, what they've been doing with their students to really get interaction with all the students, whether at home or face-to-face in person. And so this was kind of just a pictorial of what's going on. We also want to take time to show you a video that was sent our way for a winter concert that was done through Central Middle School. And the cool thing about the video we're going to show you is it not only showcases our students in 8th grade who are performing with the band director, Kevin Fredericks, but also it has 2 other teachers that have given their time to make a difference in the lives of these students as well. And so you're going to see a video clip with these other 2 teachers, Scott Parola, who's actually a math teacher at Prairie Knolls, joining in with his guitar. And then we have Jim Strike as well, who's joining in with his guitar, along with the 8th grade students. And it's amazing to me when you think about these students are at home playing their instruments all together in 8th grade without any kind of major mess up. So it was very, very impressive. So we want to take time to let you see this video. Really the spirit of what is going on out there and our teachers stepping up to let students know that they're there for them, regardless of if they're teaching them or not. So I thought that really represented kind of the, really the commitment of our teachers to come and make sure that this experience for our students is really a positive experience. in addition to the encore presentation. All this coming out of Central Middle School right now. I'm sure we'll have more to share with you as we move forward. The other updates we want to give you is that pretty much we're flat in terms of the number of students who have shifted between remote to hybrid. High school has the largest shift of many more students going off, we should say many more, less than 20 per grade level, going into more of the remote versus hybrid, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but otherwise it's a pretty flat number across all other grade levels for the second semester as we come back. So schedules are currently being worked on and will be completed prior to the winter break finishing. The next piece is that the board received an email from a parent regarding my presentation last month where they had asked for us to look specifically at remote-only students, and if maybe we missed that piece, that they felt that maybe the hybrid students were not performing as well as remote students, and really wanted me to take a look at that. So I did do that for tonight's board meeting. So it's a pretty short presentation that I'm going to walk you through to kind of show you what the data shows in terms of the evidence. Remembering quarter 2 just finished up, so this is quarter 1 data. So it's basically the same data you saw last month. You can go ahead and continue. So this graph represents all the remote-only students that we have currently in the high school. So we're looking specifically at the high school because it's the only school that currently has a blend between hybrid students and remote-only students that are happening at the same time within a classroom. We have 323 total students in high school that are remote-only students, and they're taking kind of a breakdown between remote-only, could be remote and hybrid, mixed together. And then to the right side, you see the dark bar there. So we have 323 students, and you see that 130, that it represents our students in remote that are getting D's and F's. So that number becomes important for us as we start to drive down or dig into that data a little bit deeper. The other thing that I think is really important to look at is the students with disabilities and how are we managing within that student population for D's and F's. So you can see we have 258 students that are remote only, that are without an IEP 504 or English learners, and 86 that have remote with D's and F's, so 86 of the 258 students. And then you see the breakdown by number of students with IEPs, number of students with 504s, and then the breakdown number of students with EL, English learners. So for the most part, our English learners, which get to be a fairly small number when we get to high school, it's not a large band. You start to look at this, we also have students that are mixed between these subgroups, and so we did not include them in it because we wanted to show just those IEP kids, and that N size was so small, I did not represent them because I didn't want to give those populations away. So the numbers don't match exactly, that's why. Next slide. So then I looked at, well, if we have remote-only students with D's and F's by course type, and when I say course type, I wanted to look at the students who only have hybrid classes, and primarily because they can't be a good comparative. They don't have the experience of remote and hybrid, so I really wanted those group of students that had both an experience in a remote and a hybrid, because I needed to see how did they perform in those two different instructional types of courses. So that 133 becomes 100. So we have 100 students at the high school that actually fall within the classification of having courses that are either hybrid and or remote, so that I could do a comparative on how did those students perform within that setting. Any questions on that? So, next slide. The next thing I did was I said, well, let's look specifically at those 100 students and dig a little bit deeper by coursework to see if we see any differences within that subgroup of 100 students. And I broke it down by the what we know as the 4 core classes: math, English, social studies, and science. The blue represents remote-only students with Ds. The red represents remote-only with Fs. The yellow represents hybrids with Ds. And the green represents hybrids with Fs. So if you take the red and the green, that shows you the number of students who are failing classes within these 4 types of coursework: math, English, science, and social studies. And if you take the blue and the yellow, that's the Ds. And the reason I show Ds is those are still students that are on the cusp of maybe struggling academically, so we want to make sure we're picking those students up. In this data, you can see that we have a fairly large number of remote-only students, as compared to the hybrid. If you look at the red to green in math, 21 students versus 13 students for remote only, failing at a higher rate. ELA, 20 students to 12 students, higher rate in the remote only. Science, much closer match at 13 and 11, so fairly close. And then social studies, we have 14 in the remote and 6 in the hybrid. You know, so you
This
can see-
number of Ds and Fs, so one student could be responsible for 3 Fs in here?
Right.
Okay. So do we have the data about what percentage of
The-
remote students have 1 D or an F?
I'm sorry, this is the number of students.
This is not grades.
No.
This is students with at least 1 D or 1 F.
That is correct.
So if they had a D and an F, would they show up in both?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
But only once in each.
correct.
Okay.
So the next thing I did was I said, well, let's look at the math courses. Did it matter, the type of math courses and how they were performing? So did they perform better, say, in physical education or in fine arts or some of those other courses? And again, you see them stacked up. I did not put these in order. So math course A is not algebra 1. I mixed them up because I didn't want to throw any specific teacher or content underneath the bus. So these are pretty much just mixed up. And if you look again, this is compared to these different courses offered as both hybrids. So these are the courses that are being offered and how the remote hybrid and remote only are performing. Again, you can see remote only Fs are red, hybrid Fs are green. So I'm looking at kind of the reds to see the trends there and where they're falling by specific courses that are happening. And you can see for math course A, for math course C, ELA course A, ELA course B, science course A, social studies course B, social studies course C. Those numbers are much higher, a little bit higher. We're only looking at 9s and 10s, so than what the hybrid peer is. So definitely a remote student is not performing as well as a hybrid student. Not dramatically different, but you're only looking at 100 kids in terms of your whole subpopulation of like 1,300 students, so a very small piece of a population. And then finally I did a comparative of the percentages of Ds and F in remote only and hybrid courses for students in general. So the number of students with larger percent of DF in remote only courses. So 54% of the students is about 100. 54% of the students had more Ds and Fs in remote only courses as compared to hybrid, was 43%. And there was 3% of our population that basically had no change at all. They were pretty consistent regardless of the type of course that they were taking. So overall, hybrid students performed better or higher than their remote only peers, or the students that were in a remote only course within the hybrid course. So I think the parent had thought maybe hybrid students were not performing as well in those types of courses where there was a mix of instruction going on. That is not what we saw.
The slide before this one,
Yep,
those are, the red and blue are remote-only courses.
remote only courses. Students that are in a remote only course, correct. Those are remote only courses. Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, pre-calc, one of those.
So
Could be.
specifically taught to only remote kids.
Right, and then the green and the yellow are taught to the hybrid, which could have remote kids in there.
Right.
So it's the remote-only teacher for remote-only kids versus a hybrid who has a
Classroom
mix
teacher.
between all of those. Correct.
Did this surprise you?
Yes, love it.
Immense.
How did it surprise you?
Well, you would think if they had a single teacher, and I think it was the argument the parent was making, if you had one teacher focused on one group of kids, just remote only, that they would perform better than a teacher who has to do a mix of those types of kids.
Right.
And in fact, we found the opposite, that the teacher was doing the mix of the hybrid and could be remote only in there. It's hybrid, so it could be remote kids in there as well, synchronous with the kids at home, or performing better.
In the overall analysis, how does this compare with last year in terms of overall percentages? I mean, is it a major change in any of the areas?
Major,
Yeah.
I don't think we're as high as some districts. In terms of the Ds and Fs, it's substantial. I wouldn't say it's drastic, but we've definitely seen more Ds and Fs across the board than we have before. We did an analysis, and I don't have those numbers memorized, but we looked at how many students actually who never had a D or F before have one now. The problem was we had to go back to 7th and 8th grade, so it wasn't good trend data because it was historical in nature. And so a freshman, in order to get 2 years trend, I had to go back to the 7th grade year, 7th to 8th grade, and then freshman. So it wasn't a good comparative. My sophomores, I had to go all the way back to 8th grade, so it was 8th grade, freshman, sophomore. So I didn't feel like that was a good comparative because it's two different types of experiences.
Yeah.
And in those cases, we saw, I think it was like 50 or 60 students that actually had worse grades here, which is not substantial for 1,300 kids.
But this has made national, I mean, it's in national school news about number of Ds and Fs increasing across the nation in the various learning models. We've been addressing it as a standing item on our administrative meetings, and we have principals monitoring their DF reports for their buildings, and then working to try to intervene and help these students.
We have principals who are marrying up with teachers to try to intervene and get, parents aware of it, try to get interaction between the families, trying to come up with solutions on how do we help students have better academic behaviors, completion of work, those types of things. But it also makes you rethink about how are you grading, what is the grading practices that we have within our school system, and definitely something that will be coming up in CCC again. We talk about grading practices, but it'll be another conversation about, what's in a grade?
Yeah.
What is important in a grade? What are we actually assessing when we grade students? Is it the outcome or the learning target, or is it that they can complete homework? And is the homework the means to the end? We do have some teachers where we're having conversations where maybe a student can come in and do very well in an assessment, but they're not doing their work, but they get a poor score. Well, is it more important they can do the work? Or more important they can get the grade on the assessment that's actually assessing the outcome, or they can do the work? And I think there's a mix there. We all kind of think that. But what is that balance? And I think that has to go to the curriculum council to have more conversation.
And we talked about that at our last CCC meeting, in person in February, I believe.
Yep.
Which was my only in-person one, so.
So obviously, we're tracking changes in grade levels by individual student, obviously, right? And involving parents a lot more than perhaps historically we would have done.
Yeah, I think we definitely have to involve parents. I think a lot of times when they're in school every day, it's easier for a teacher to follow up and to stay on them. When they're at home 3 days a week,
Yeah.
we need the parents to partner with us to assist us in making sure that some of that stuff's getting done. And I think that having that communication or collaboration definitely makes a difference for those students, especially those students that struggle a little bit more and maybe don't have those academic behaviors, to help them get done what they need to get done.
And again, if we're looking at basically saying hybrid students are generally doing better than full remote students, right? For what being part of that must be obviously because there isn't the check-in on a sort of person-to-person basis.
Correct.
As much as there would be otherwise, right?
That, and they're turning off their computer screens and probably going back and laying down. And,
Yeah.
I know I've heard teachers say they've called on little Susie, and little Susie doesn't respond. And then eventually she checks out. So it's making sure that they're there.
Do we have any feel? Sorry, I'm curious. Do we have any feel as to how much of this is actually incompletion as opposed to sort of doing bad work, right?
I don't have those percentages.
I mean, do you feel that there is a large element to that here?
I think there's a lot of not completing their work.
So involving the parents might actually help that. I mean, get the parents
think
getting involved, perhaps.
I think it's two-tiered. It's about involving parents and trying to do that partnership, but it's also about what's in a grade.
Yeah.
What is it that we should be assessing? What's part of that grade? What is the percentages? High school does a really good job of setting up categories in middle school. Elementary is just learning to do that. So what percent do you give to assessment versus what percent do you give to homework that they're completing? Should it really be everything thrown together to give them that score, or should there be a different percent based on the outcomes that you have? And so it's really what's in that grade. How do we know what we should be grading? How important is the grading, and making sure that your grades represent what it is you want your students to know. And definitely work ethic is one piece of it, but it shouldn't weigh in where if somebody's performing really well in assessments that they should fail the class. That's probably not the the percent we want.
It's
So
really
it's having those
about
conversations.
honing in, and especially a year like this, honing in on the key content knowledge. So you have your learning standard, your instruction should be to that standard, and then some form of an assessment.
Yeah.
That assessment could take multiple forms,
Yeah.
but some form of an assessment to demonstrate to you as the teacher that, okay, they own this knowledge now. And so that's what Dr. Mangan's talking about, the quality
Yeah.
and,
No, so, I mean, I'm assuming,
it's been a great.
I mean, are we putting an emphasis on actually teaching new learning skills as well? I'm assuming that's, I mean, we're fully remote, nobody's actually had the opportunity to learn that skill before.
No, I think what I've said this year, everybody's a first-year everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm a first-year administrator, our teachers are a first-year teacher, our students are first-year, students, because everything has shifted. So in addition to learning the traditional educational setting, there's also all these other skills that we've never taught or that we've not learned that we're learning along the way. I think we're getting better at it. I think our teachers are definitely finding their mojo. They're getting going, and many of them are feeling more confident.
Yeah.
But that being said, they're dealing with other things that they never thought about, like how do I engage a student when I can't reach them? How do I get them to connect with me? How do I make sure that they're signing in when I need them to sign in? How do I make sure that they're actually getting the objective of the lesson? And so they're thinking that way, and our students are thinking, well, how do I make myself get up and get on and get the schedule? How do I keep myself organized? What's a better tool for me? They're all learning in this digital sense, and so it's a shift of what they've always done. I do think we're getting better and better at it. I'm looking forward to crunching the quarter 2 data.
Yeah.
To see how it compares to quarter 1, and have we seen some good gains? I think we have. Our principals have done a great job of really staying on this and working with our teachers, and our teachers are learning new strategies about how to go about this. So fingers crossed that we see some better scores and that we saw semester 1 come out better than quarter 1.
Have we thought about, or are we doing any actual education for parents, actual classes on how to manage?
We talked to Jeff Herman, who kind of does our intervention stuff at the high school, and so he has done some courses up at the high school.
Right.
After the break, he's going to do the same courses at Central Middle School and at Prairie Knolls Middle School,
Yeah.
talking about some of those things. What can we do to help our students succeed? Really talking about those academic behaviors, talking about the importance of students staying organized, the importance of completing work, and all of those skill sets that you need. So he's got a presentation he's already been giving out at the high school level, and it'll go down to the middle school level as
And
well.
obviously answering parents' questions at the same time as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, great, thank you.
So how's academic advisory working for remote-only kids? Is that working better than last year? Checking in with the assignments? Okay. And then one other question, just not hypothetical, but just in your opinion, I guess. I would see this, my opinion, the answer would be yes, but if we were remote only, I think the remote D's and F's would be higher than these numbers.
Oh, yeah. If we were remote only,
Immensely.
completely?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, yes. We know statistically, when I'm talking to my colleagues out in, other districts that neighbor us, I belong to a larger organization across all of suburbia. Their numbers are dramatically higher than our numbers. I think the model we underwent, definitely we're seeing a much lower number. Still not where I'd like to see it. It's still higher than it was last year.
Sure.
But comparative to our districts who are fully remote, no comparison. We're definitely doing a much better job of educating our youth, I believe, at Central 301, for sure. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results, because at some point we're going to get a comparative. I just don't know when you're going to see that.
Yeah, I just commend you guys on pressing the hybrid learning. I know we've had pressure both ways, and I'm glad we went the route we did with hybrid. I mean, this is just more proof, and the numbers don't lie, that hybrid works much better than remote only. Kids need to be in school as much as they can, so.
And tied into that, there was much talk about a post-Thanksgiving surge, and our district did not experience a post-Thanksgiving surge, so that's great news. I think much of that is due to the fact that we have really good sanitation procedures in place, that we really practice social distancing to the greatest extent possible, and mask use. And I think that our parents and our students are monitoring their symptoms, and if they're sick, they're staying home, and that's keeping us safe. As of Friday, the 18th, we had 6 positive cases across both staff and students in the entire district.
Well,
So, I mean, we're doing very well, and now it's just, as we continue forward, we plan on welcoming everyone back on January 4th. So, but again, I think it's to the diligence of everyone following the proper protocols. And of course, we have 2 vaccines that have received approval. The issue with that is that there is no vaccine that's been approved for pediatric yet. The CDC is recommending the vaccine for individuals 16 and older. The first groups receiving the first batches of vaccine, which started last week, are healthcare workers, our frontline workers, and then our long-term care facility individuals will be receiving the vaccine, and people that work there. And what they're doing is, if you were part of a group that received the first batch of vaccine, you receive your second dose in 20-some days. And so they hold other vaccine in arrears. So what they do is, if you were part of the first group to get that vaccine, they have other vaccine ready that they'll ship out that would be for those people, so they can have both doses. They do recommend 2 doses of the vaccine. You can have 1 dose, and they just don't know how effective it will be long-term, so they are recommending a booster dose. And then the other thing is, since this is a novel coronavirus, they really don't know if, down the road there's going to need to be a booster, or, how it's going to react that way. But we can see then they expect other phases to come online, which could include different various essential worker groups, including educators, possibly in late January, February. And in my latest phone call last week with the Kane County Health Department, the CDC and groups have indicated that they believe that there will be enough vaccine available to pretty much provide it to anyone who would seek that vaccine during 2021.
so are we going to be vaccinating in school or not?
So that's interesting, because I remember as a student, a young 4th grader standing in line for the max vaccination in the 60s. They're moving away from that.
I'm talking for the educators. Actually.
Right? They want to do it. They want to do it through. They want to do it through other means. They want to do it through pharmacies, through doctors' offices, through healthcare clinics. And that's a little less scary maybe for people too. And they're hoping that we can reach 70 to 80% of either people who either have received the vaccine or have recovered from COVID, and before they can declare what they would call herd immunity. So,
Are we going to be requiring vaccination by educators?
the vaccines are not required at this time.
The EEOC ruled last week that an employer could in fact do that,
But the CDC itself is not saying that
Right.
vaccines are mandated for anyone at this time.
Interesting.
All right, next we have the Director Holloway with the Facilities Work Order Summary.
So another month done, another month in. I appreciate the kudos from Dr. Stern, because our staff is working hard. They've been doing a great job keeping up with it, working every Saturday. It's a lot, our Wednesday disinfectings, but they're doing what they can do. Our department's doing what we can do to make sure that we're doing what's best for kids, and that's having them in school. So we appreciate those kudos. Again, our data shows pretty much the same as it did last month. Our staff works really hard at closing out the work orders, especially the cleaning ones, in light of what's going on. I want to, again, thank Mandy for putting this together for us. She's our data expert, so she put this together again for us for this month. So this is November 1st through November 30th. We were from the start of school till October 31st in the last presentation. All the buildings, again, are cleaning work orders. This is just cleaning and custodial work orders. So this is only a snippet of what our total work order load is on a month. But this is what we're focusing on, is the cleaning and custodial work piece. Every once in a while, we're going to have a work order that takes an extra day or two, depending on when the staff member gets it. There may be a little more involved in it, but we work really hard, especially the cleaning and sanitation ones, to get them taken care of same day. Our staff is getting a lot more in tune with the cleaning procedures, with our new night supervisor working with all of our new staff, especially on procedures and how to look at their workload. We're definitely minimizing the work orders that come in for inadequacies and what we're required to do. So that's, again, kudos to our staff for that. CMS, the same thing. Our staff works hard to get work orders closed out the same day. Again, some closed out the second day. That could be partially from when a staff member, if they don't get to close that work order, they may close it out in their next shift. PK, same thing. Again, these trends are very similar, are going to be very similar month to month.
So what would cause, since this is all cleaning, these are cleaning.
Correct.
What would cause a cleaning issue to last for 2 days?
Well, it could be, it probably is not that the cleaning issue, it took the work order to be closed out in 2 days. Okay. So it may not necessarily have been a cleaning issue. Okay. It could be something that had to be scheduled to do, like it was something that we couldn't get into a classroom to do that particular day, so we set up with the teacher, the principal, to come in the following day. HBT, Lily Lake, that's two months in a row.
Congratulations. No,
Yeah.
very clean people.
Yeah. PV, and then our total. Again, very few of those work orders take more than 1 day. Again, it could be for the time for that staff member to come in their next shift to close that work order out. I want to take just a minute and speak on, so our staff has had the new wrinkle we added to their workload was filling out those daily logs. So they've been doing a really good job at that. It was a little work in progress to kind of get them in tune. We just started scanning and digitizing all those documents because we've been doing them all in paper. But our staff is doing a really good job. There's been a lot of great learning moments in doing that. For our staff uses that as a communication mechanism back to us. We check those very regularly, especially with our night supervisor. He's checking them daily. So it's given us some good dialogue to talk with the principals about how we do things, when we do them, and just kind of opened up some communication. So that's also been a huge benefit. Any questions?
And Eric, just to address yours, so in the back, in your Places Board packet, you have the details. We don't
That's what
give
I'm
that
looking at
out.
right
Yeah, because it's got names, so it's confidential because the name's on there, but for your purposes,
Yeah.
you can see the rationale behind each of those.
I mean, firstly, can I just say thank you very much for keeping up with this.
Right.
I mean, management is everything, just managing that process is just fantastic. And the detail, including removing wasps, the kind of things that people do on a daily basis, right? The other thing I would say, 89.3% of these are completed by the same day or 1 day. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. But keep up with the data, please. Right.
I just had an observation, I guess. Do you guys refill bottles like the night before?
We try to keep what we've talked about numerous process. I mean, our staff pretty much as they're going through will check bottles, but we've encouraged teachers to kind of just communicate with us through a work order if their bottle's empty. We try to, but our staff is moving. I mean, the extra sanitation we're doing and things, it's hard for them. And then if a teacher doesn't keep it in the same spot, it's kind of difficult to manage. So that's why we ask them to put in work orders if they need it to get it refilled.
I remember in our town hall meeting, one time you shared that if bottles, if they're like half full or quarter full, put in for an order, and
Right.
make sure that they get filled up before they're empty.
Yep. And we have plenty of equipment, supplies, plenty of materials on hand at the building. So if somebody was to run out in the middle of the day, the main office, our staff has access to plenty of disinfectant and plenty of material. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next is the draft school calendar for next year.
I included a memo and I included the draft calendar. Exactly where they're going to fall. This is if you remember talking to the board last year, I said there was like a 2-year period where it seems like we would be starting earlier in August. And then for the 2022, 2023 school year, it kind of backs up to more towards that 3rd week again in August. So this calendar that I've drafted up follows the Mid-Valley program so that our students in those programs could have access to them if we begin on the 11th. And if we begin on the 11th, that would be for students in K-12, and then preschool would begin on Monday the 16th,
Kindergarten too,
and kindergarten.
Yeah.
So it's 1st through 12
yeah.
on the 11th, and then preschool, kindergarten on the 16th. Then, part of the other reason why I'm proposing this start date is when you balance out your semesters. We end the first semester right before the winter break, and that would give 83 days in the first semester and 91 days in the second semester. So trying to balance out those instructional periods. Because if we would start on the 11th with students, we're moving parent-teacher conferences up to that first Thursday and Friday in November.
Can we
to align
move those attached to Columbus Day, like 303? Make that like the 7th, 8th right now that's on there. That way we have at day 40, especially for our elementary school kids, we have conferences at day 40 instead of day 56 or 7, 58. Just that way it's the end of the first quarter. And, you know, we already have a 3-day weekend there. So already have the 7th, if we moved them from the 4th and 5th of November up to the 7th and 8th, which again is, just looked at 303's calendar, that's what they did. They wove the parent-teacher conference into Columbus Day.
Well, it's something that we could look at.
Just again, when you look at the month, we have the whole week of Thanksgiving off, and then we would have a 4-day weekend in the same month. So just from like a logistical standpoint, that just seems kind of silly to me. To have a 4-day weekend, then 2 weeks of school and another week off versus, you know, a longer weekend in each month. And also just especially for our grade school kids. So I think, you know, we as grade school parents tend to be a little more anxious about like what's going on with our kids because we didn't know until Thanksgiving, which is really far. And now this is better, 2.5 weeks earlier. But I would argue even getting to the end of the first quarter just makes more sense to me for parents to have communication. And yes, we know teachers should be communicating with parents. We clearly know that, and most of them are, obviously, right? But that's something that I would like you guys to consider.
Okay. I will take a look at that, and I can bring it back to the board. Like I said, this is information right now.
And this is assuming that we're coming back full-time, 5 days a week, in person, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Isn't that nice to think about that?
Yes.
It's always good to be hopeful. I mean, that's our goal. We want everyone to be safe, but we want our kids back in school.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
And to be fair, if it doesn't work out that way, since we're prepared,
Right.
this shouldn't affect, in theory, whatever the expectations would be. There's not going to be a kid's vaccine by then, so it's
No.
not like our kids will have been vaccinated. So the likelihood that we're going to be in school full-time with no restrictions, I think, is quite low. So there's going to have to be some variation. If the County Health Department says you can come out and do 3 feet instead of 6 feet, well, then we can do that, I suppose, right? With something different. So, but that shouldn't affect our ability to use this calendar, though, correct?
Oh, correct.
Because, again,
What-
we're differently
whatever-
prepared now.
Whatever instructional model we
We
decide
could
to go
use this
with,
calendar.
the calendar could
Right.
still work.
But it is,
We needed additional time to work out all of the technicalities of our plan
Absolutely.
for beginning this school year. We now have that worked out, so.
it was nice to have a brief positive moment there, by the way, just saying.
Yeah, until Debbie Downer over there.
I mean, I'm usually an optimist here, people, so.
The institute days, are those countywide, or is that just PD here in the district?
The February 25th day is the King County Institute Day. The other days are our days where we work on different curriculum initiatives.
Like October 8th would be just within our district.
That would be in our district.
Yep.
Correct.
I like that idea of moving it to the end of the first quarter, but you'd almost have to still give them a 3.5-day weekend in November and switch those institute days over. You know what I mean?
So I've always been a fan of pushing them earlier.
Right.
So just,
What I'll do is I'll bring back a couple examples.
yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I'd be interested to see, I mean, I don't know, I would assume most of our teachers feel like, in week 9 of instruction, they have a good idea about where somebody is falling, right? That we're not putting too much on them to have to pick a trajectory, if you will, right? If they're going to give feedback to a parent, it should be pretty clear at that point, at any level.
Correct.
Where
And
the kids
the
are-
institute days can be moved further in the calendar year as well, in
You just
January, February,
flop
so.
them. I mean,
Right.
so,
Right. All right, finally, there's bus bid for next year also.
So we're going into our big bus bid year. We're going to have 59 total buses that are going to go up for our new 2-year lease. We'll get the notice in the paper sometime this week, hopefully, and then bid opening probably on January 11th-ish, and then bring the results back to January's board meeting. Talking to people and listening to a bunch of different groups that I sit on, the demand for used buses is not there. So they're having probably a harder time reselling some of our buses, so it'll be interesting to see what the bids come in at. There's increases in raw materials, there's some greenhouse charges that are going up, so they're like, everything's going up. So I anticipate obviously more, maybe a higher bid than normal, but looking at the past, the amounts have been increasing over time anyway, so I don't think it's going to be that shocking of a bid, but it is our big bus bid year.
All right, thanks, Dana. Next is FOIA. We have a couple of FOIAs, so.
Yes, we had a FOIA from Smart Procure, a little bit of a different FOIA in that they were looking for information related to staff information, like, which we were able to provide them because it wasn't like personal information related to staff. It would be like district emails, which are on our website anyway. You can find those. So we were able to respond to that FOIA. And then the second FOIA was from Local Labs, and that was requesting, they're the sponsor of the Prairie State Wire, and that was requesting term data for board members, like, what is the election cycle, what are the current board members, what's their term? And then because it was a wide-reaching FOIA, as school board members, you're not paid, but there are some various boards that are out there where people are paid, so they want to know your salary you were paid for serving as a school board member.
Well, that's easy.
Which of course is 0. So we were able to reply to that FOIA as well.
There's one error on the response to them. I don't know if it really matters. The term ending for Mitch and Laura was 2013.
Not
Not
20.
that
So I'm
it's
here
a
for
huge
nothing?
deal. Not a huge deal, but there's just a little bit of,
That's why you're not getting paid.
Well, there's that.
We meant to tell you, Mitch, but you know.
yeah, I know what you meant. It says 2013 though, on there.
All right, well, that does it for open session. We'll need a motion and second to adjourn the executive session.
So move.
Second?
Pick me, Pam. Yes.
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 Yes. Take a 5-minute break.